It's Blissin' Up. I'm your host, Rachel Lang, intuitive astrologer. Get starstruck with inspiring guests and engaging conversations. Blissin' Up starts now. Hello and welcome. You're listening to Blissin' Up. I'm your host, Rachel Lang, and I'm here in studio with John Williams.
Good afternoon.
Hello, John. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, hon?
I'm great. I'm actually really excited because we have a very exciting show today.
Yes, we do.
We do. We have a special guest. He's an international speaker. He's an author. He's a yogi, and he's a complete inspiration. David Matthew Brown is with us, going to be with us today in the second half of the show, and he is just, you know, I started out listening to his podcast Inside Out several years ago, and that's how I became familiar with him, with his work and with his ideas, and so I'm just thrilled. He's just written a book called 90 Days of Heat: Freedom Through Moksha, and it's about his journey after a divorce. He decided to take a Bikram, a hot yoga challenge, and it started out with 30 days of hot yoga. And then he ended up extending it, and he actually finished 100 days of yoga, but he blogged about 90 of those days. And so he turned his blogs and his posts and all of his spiritual insights into a book. And it's a great book, and it has completely inspired me, actually, to get into yoga, which I've always had kind of a secret little resistance to.
Oh,
so yeah, so I'm excited that he'll be with us today. And you know, for those of you who are new to the show, you know, this one thing that I love about this show is that what I like to do is I like to really connect you to the cosmos, so that you understand that you're not alone, you're not on an island by yourself, that we are all connected in ways that kind of, you know, are beyond our understanding, but also, you know, we've kind of breathe in tandem with one another and with the universe. So, you know, that's how I approach astrology as well. Like, you know, we can understand a lot more about ourselves, a lot more about the universe, and about our connectivity through really understanding the astrological symbolism of that we're given, that's available for us, and that has been for you know, thousands and thousands of years. So, you know, so today we are just coming off of a very, very significant conjunction. The planet, the sun, the sun has been right next to Jupiter, and so what that symbolizes for us, you know, Jupiter is the planet of expansion. It's the planet of spiritual truth, and the sun is the brightest luminary in the heavens. And so in our personal lives, in our personal charts, the sun represents how we shine, the light that we shine into the world, and really what our sense of self-expression is all about. And so these two influences in the heavens, forming a conjunction, have brought profound revelations and insights, and I've seen this in my client practice, and I've also seen this in my own life. Have you been feeling it, John?
Well, what exactly do you feel is happening right now with that? Because the reason I'm asking that is because there's so much going on with the planets right now, right? With the retrograde,
yes.
and we've got the supermoon coming up,
yes,
and it's just
exactly.
like, so I'm like, I don't know how you tell the difference between all this, because there's a lot of activity going on.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Well, what I think, so that's a really good point. So Venus is retrograde. We're all looking backwards in terms of our relationships.
Yeah.
And really understanding our own sense of self-esteem, self-worth, and value, both personally, you know, in our own lives,
Right.
and also within the context of our relationships. And so there's a whole lot of reevaluating that we're doing, you know, and a whole lot of
cosmic soup.
It is, yes, but it's a good hearty soup. It's like a lentil soup, you know. So this is what's happening. But the Jupiter Sun conjunction, what that did was, it kind of is. It marked like sort of an aha moment. Like, okay, I get it. So if we have all this stuff swirling underneath us, the retrograde and all these other
Right.
planetary energies that have been going on, and a lot of transition too. A lot of cycles beginning, a lot of cycles ending. Saturn's getting ready to leave Scorpio, where it's been for 2.5 years, and enter Sagittarius, and Jupiter just entered Virgo. So there's a whole lot of shifting, a whole lot of sort of saying goodbye, closing out chapters and starting new ones. So this influence just kind of punctuated that.
So it's almost like an astrological new year.
Yep. Totally.
In some ways.
Some ways, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's
new
more,
beginnings.
It's like insights, like bright insights.
Okay.
So with that said, let's get starstruck.
All right, we're gonna get starstruck.
This is the segment of our show where we talk about what's happening astrologically this week so that you can make the most of each day. And our week starts out with, we're just coming out of this influence that we've been talking about, the Sun Jupiter conjunction. And we're kicking the week off like really powerfully with a supermoon, with the full moon in Pisces that'll happen tomorrow at 11:35 a.m. Now, this is going to be especially powerful for our mutable signs. So our Geminis, Virgos, Sagittarius, and Pisces. John's got 2 of those influences in his chart.
That's why I said I've been feeling this.
Yes, absolutely.
Brewing for a while.
I know. This one is actually really powerful, and it's the first of 3 supermoons that we're going to encounter throughout. So right now, and then we have 2 more that are coming in September. And a supermoon, we feel it very strongly because the moon is closer to the Earth. It's in perigee, and so that means, and it's also in syzygy, which I always have a hard time saying. But so that means that it's close to the Earth and it's in alignment, a certain alignment with the Sun and the Earth. And so on a physical and emotional level, we feel this very strongly. The electromagnetic influence of this full moon is potent.
Plus the solar flare is going on. Right?
Yes, totally.
It's like the sun and the moon are giving it to us.
Yeah, but in a really lovely, healing way.
Okay.
I mean, that John's like, I don't trust it. No, we're gonna take a very positive outlook on this, because on an emotional level.
Yeah.
Pisces, which the moon is in Pisces, it's 6 degrees Pisces, it'll be full. It urges us to really feel deeply and to really kind of dwell in our hearts. And Virgo is, it's ruled by Mercury. It's about the mind, and so this is a moment where we feel that polarity, and we're pulled to our emotional selves. We're pulled into our hearts. And so in that space, we really develop a sense of our own truth, and our truth comes from that deep presence, that deep presence that we feel when we're feeling, and our feelings are like great big radio waves that are constantly signaling to one another, and so we're always feeling in tandem with everybody else, and so it really is a moment when we have the opportunity to really on a visceral level feel that sense of connection with one another. I love the Sabian symbol for this full moon. It is illumined by a shaft of light. A large cross lies on rocks, surrounded by sea. So if you think about this is like a bright cross, a bright, huge cross. Cross being the cross symbolically is the intersection between matter, the physical, and spirit. Which, so so when we talk about the cross, it's really ourselves being present, connected to heaven, connected to the cosmos, connected to the earth, and so illumined, basically on an island of rocks. And so that might be how you feel. This is an opportunity to really get in touch with your own core truth and realize that by illuminating your core truth, the truth of who you are, the truth that comes from your heart, that by illuminating that and not hiding it, that you actually have the ability to attract others and to help others illuminate their own truth, the own core of who they are. So this is not a time to hide from shining as brightly as you can. This is not a time to sort of fear speaking up or speaking out. If you see something that's wrong, or you see something that someone being harmed, this is a time to illuminate your own truth for yourself and then for others. So that's what this full moon is really about. It's also great for creative projects, for meditation, for yoga, for service to others. That Pisces Virgo axis really loves giving back, loves contributing to the whole. So find at least one way to give back this weekend. And engage in something that feeds your soul, that helps further illuminate your truth. Art, music, go to a gallery, go to an opening, get inspired, especially our water signs who feel things a little bit more intensely. So our Scorpios, our Pisces, our Cancers. You're gonna really want to kind of make the most of this. There's a little bit of sensitivity for all of us, so we have to be very gentle with one another and our emotions. Now, we're going to feel this influence Saturday and Sunday. Then on Monday, the sun forms in opposition to Neptune. And so our mutable signs are really getting a dose of energy this week. And so, Neptune is dreamy, it's romantic, it's mystical. And Virgo is like, Neptune is in Pisces, and it's opposing the sun in Virgo. And Virgo is methodical, it's detailed, it's meticulous, it's logical, more logical. And so there's a contrast here. And so what we're kind of being asked to do, this is sort of like a very similar influence to the full moon. We're really being asked to kind of dwell in that, in the mystical, dwell in infinite possibilities, to not take things too seriously, and if you can, engage in something that's creative on Monday as well. Then on Tuesday, the moon in Aries is going to ask us to kind of take charge of situations. It's going to be like, all right, you've had a couple of days of dreaming. You've had a couple of Neptunian days. Now let's get focused. But it's in void of course most of the day. So we're focused, but there's not a sense that we're getting a lot accomplished. So you're going to need to find an outlet for your creative energy, especially our fire signs, Aries, Leo, Sagittarius. You're going to feel this one the most because you're inclined to say, pull the trigger, go, and if anything slows you down or stops you, it feels very restless. So this is also a really good day to start a workout, join a gym, to do something physical, go on a hike, to really find a physical outlet for some of that energy. Then on Tuesday night, it's a great night for romance, especially for our fire signs. Venus and Mars are going to conjoin in Leo, and it's going to be very romantic. We might all want to plan a date night, and if you're single, this is definitely, and looking for a relationship, this is definitely a time when it would be good to get out of your comfort zone and really connect with some people. So that's Tuesday night. Then Wednesday, the moon moves into Taurus. And so it kind of allows us to ground our energy. This is great for our earth signs, Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. Wednesday and Thursday, it's about focus. It's about carefully moving, and applying, practical, tangible steps to some of the things that you want to create. We're in a full moon. We're still in the full moon cycle. It's moving to the new moon. So this is a time when you might have an awareness about what in your life needs to be eliminated or what needs to be cleared up. This is a great day for cleaning the house, doing some feng shui, for really making your space a sacred space, and not doing a whole lot of design overhaul as the moon is still or Venus is still in retrograde, but really seeing what kind of changes you can make to make your dwelling a little bit more sacred. So that's this week. We're going to take a really short break and get ready for 90 Days of Heat and our interview with David Matthew Brown. I have a fun song to kind of bring us into that next segment. So stay tuned. All right, now that everybody's had their dancing opportunity for the day, the first of many, I'm sure.
Yeah.
We're back. This is Blissin' Up. I am your host, Rachel Lang, and I'm here today with guest David Matthew Brown. Hi, David.
Right on.
Yeah.
Hanging loose.
Excellent. So David is an author. a yogi, a blogger, a spiritual teacher, and an international speaker on universal principles, sound, energy, and shamanic work. He's also a metaphysician trained at the Agape International Spiritual Center, and he's the former host, a radio host of Inside Out, which is where I first learned of your work and first met you. And he's dialogued with over 500 guests, including incredible spiritual leaders and spiritual thinkers, including Archbishop Desmond Tutu, Don Miguel Ruiz, Marianne Williamson, Byron Katie. The list goes on and on and on. In addition to that, he's just written a book called 90 Days of Heat, Freedom Through Moksha. And he's also has another book called The Book of Light, The Heart Opening. And so I'm so excited and thrilled to have you here today.
It's fun.
Yeah,
Thanks
definitely.
for having me.
Sure. So I want to start with the book, with 90 Days of Heat, because I found it to be a complete and total inspiration.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah. So you after you went through a divorce,
Right.
and you had done a lot of forgiveness work, and you have this really strong, powerful spiritual background.
Right.
And it seemed like your yoga practice took it to the next level.
Right.
What inspired you to take up the challenge? Because it started with 30 days, a 30-day challenge.
Right.
What inspired you to go through that?
To start the whole process?
Yeah.
You know what? I mentioned in the book, I believe, that I did a book called Radical Forgiveness by Colin Tipping.
Mm-hmm.
So I did his worksheet. After I did his worksheet, I just had this day where I just felt lighter. So I was driving on La Brea, stuck in traffic, and I looked to my right, and at the time it was called Moksha Yoga on La Brea and 3rd. Now it's Moto. It's the same group. So yeah, I looked over there, and I had been practicing yoga since 2000. Hadn't done it in a while at that time. I'd never done hot yoga. And so I walked in there, and I had a blog at the time, and I said, hey, what if, to kind of keep accountability for myself, what if I go in and do 30 straight days of hot yoga, blog on it to my audience, let them know what I'm learning on the mat, be completely authentic and real with them, and how that is affecting me in my life as a single dad, as someone that's moving through my own stuff and transitioning through stuff, and just share it with my audience and see what happens. And so the lady there happened to be Emily, not only my biggest angel that walked in, the lady that runs the studio, but she grew up with a dad, a single dad, and she was very inspired by dad. She just loves dad. So she was right on, do this. So after I did the 30 straight days, I was on day 28, I think. I came out in the lobby, and she told me this great story that she was raising money for the studio, and she had set a mark for herself. And someone came up to her and challenged her to set a higher mark, and it freaked her out. And she went, I can't do that. I've never raised that much money. And not only did she then set it there, she raised beyond that amount of money. So she goes, David, I'm sharing that story with you because I feel like you can do 90 straight days. Wow. And I was 90 straight days of what? I'm almost done with 30. My blog feels good with 30. I feel like I can go on my life. So that actually became the work. From day 31, I feel like when you read the book, I finished off at 100 straight days. But the 90s was the goal for the blog, so I just kept the book that way. The last 10, when I went to 100, was just my own personal, I'm never going to be here again. I might as well just go to 100. So that day 31 through 90, that's what you're talking about. Yeah. That's when things really start getting real and deepening, and it really goes beyond superficiality and what people, I feel, think yoga is.
And that's definitely evident in your writing. I mean, the tone changes significantly from day, 1 through 10 to day 70 through 90. I mean, especially those last few days, you really tap in deeply, and there's a sense of centeredness and presence. That it's almost as if you're living and breathing yoga, not just it as a spiritual practice. Right. And so actually that takes me to a question that I had from the very beginning. In the first, I think it's day 1 or 2, you talk about breath. And how you're just following the breath. And it seems like as the book continues, you develop sort of a relationship with breath itself. Can you talk a little bit about the relationship and then like your relationship with breath.
Yeah, right. Well, we talk about it, we talk about it in spiritual practice. So, but most people glamorize it. We call it the Holy Spirit. We put emphasis on that. But if we keep it simple and we just stay with our breath, what you'll notice is, and what I noticed in my own practice is, we're almost, when they talk about being here, I look at more from a place of HEAR, because it's not a concept or idea, and we can't describe it. And so when you're in your breath, in that, like you had brought up, which is beautiful, in a relationship with your breath, what you'll notice is that when we use our will, or we try to go outside of ourselves and we think, the breath stops.
Right. It's so true.
So every time you think, your breath stops. So we're not meant to think, we're meant to breathe. So rather than saying being here, we might as well just say breathing here, like breathing with hearing, because, I talk about in my work, when I talk about the heart, that it's right there in the name, right? HEAR, to hear with your ear, EAR, and the T is truth. And the truth is that silence, that vast space that we can't even talk about, that we have no idea what it is, because it is showing itself to us in the breath, moment by moment. And a really quick side note, that in 2008, I did this kind of, I don't want to say channel, I don't really know what it was, but a conversation. In that conversation, Mother Mary came forward, and I entitled it Mary and Me. And in that, the most significant thing that was relayed to me at that time, that I did not understand, because I was way in this bad boy, was that prayer, meditation, everything is the breath. Stay in the breath. Don't go anywhere else. That's it. And it was so simple that it freaked me out. I went, there's got to be other ways. There's got to be a process. There's got to be, right? But she was very firm, from a graceful point of view, to bring it up like 3 or 4 times. And so what I noticed is that in this yoga process, it was almost as if I was being taught through the feminine to rest in the breath, to feel in the sensuality of the feelings, our senses, to no longer use the thinking mind, right? The mental, the MEN, TAL, that masculine mind, and to live in her and to trust her, and to trust her from a point to where, we have pilots on TV, where the woman's always bossing the man around and we laugh. But to leave that energetic of a physical relationship with a significant other, with another woman, right? To leave that and develop that relationship within myself. And so that's what that breath was teaching me. That breath was teaching me about to go beyond what I thought spiritual practice was, to get rid of the name spiritual or human, which we tend to use, and we use it in different ways, and to understand that we are presence, and that our presence is really all that each of us really is, and it's undefinable.
And in some ways, do you think that's what yoga is? I mean, because yoga is, you write about the stillness,
right?
The stillness, the inner stillness that happens from yoga, but yoga is also movement at the same time.
Right.
So is that similar in some ways?
Sure, it's the nature of who we are, right? We're in our society, we're really stuck on doing, right? We're stuck on it so much that I ask you, how are you doing? What are you doing?
Right.
And then I freak out, like, I can't believe you're doing that, right?
Yeah.
So, but the presence...
And we always answer fine. I'm doing fine. Like, what's that?
Because we don't know what to say.
Yeah.
Right. But if I was to ask, how's your heart right now?
Yeah.
How's the heart
Pretty
today?
happy.
Yeah, right?
Blissful.
And then the conversation, then we can just rest in presence together.
Yeah.
Right? So yoga is that energetic movement beyond the superficiality of just this mind-body experience. Because what I noticed early on is, like, day 7, I had to get through, like, my own body shame.
What was your body shame? Like, not being able to do the movements?
No, for me, it was just the way that I looked. This body. And in fact, I talk about it. There's a moment where I'm in the Studio B, and I'm in front of the mirror, and it's backlit, and I've done acting like on stage and film, so I know what that light's like, and I know it's going to come behind me, right? And I had to take my shirt off because I was sweating, and I couldn't take it anymore. I hadn't done it at all. I kept all my stuff on for 7 days, and I turned the yoga instructor and I apologized to her. And she said, "What are you apologizing about?" I go, "Look, I'm going to take my shirt off. And I am really white, and I'm going to really, this whole space is going to glow." Because everybody's like tan, and they've got this image, and it's all attitude, and it's this body thing that they've got, and it seems perfect. And then once I did that, I was given permission to just do it. From that point on, I was fine. But I write about that. So those first 30 days was almost like a way of getting through my own superficiality. And then beyond 31 days on, it then becomes what like you're referring to, that oneness, right? That oneness, that it isn't this body. It's not how, if you can hold a pose for 3 hours or take it and put it on Instagram or Facebook and say, "Wow, look, I did a headstand." That's wonderful, but it's almost like a circus act for me. It's not really what I feel yoga was meant for. I feel like yoga was meant for us to get on the mat. We can't run from it. Can't run from ourselves, and we have to be present with it.
And how did that process for you contribute? Did that help you heal from the divorce, or can you write a little bit about, or can you write about?
I can write about it. Sure.
Can you write about this? Can you? I know you already do write about it in your blog and everything.
I did, right?
Yeah, but can you talk a little bit about like sort of the healing journey that you went on personally?
Definitely. So I have this thing a workshop that I just ran or facilitated in San Diego called "Letting Go of Everything," and that stems from my yoga journey. So I remember being on the mat, and I had a sensation going through my body. And what I noticed when I was aware of the sensation is I would negate it and just try to go on to the pose. So after a while, when those sensations would come up, or feelings or emotions, I was like, who actually is running from this? What if I was just to be with it without trying to change or fix it? What would that feel like? So the feeling or sensation would come up, and I would be with the feeling or sensation as I was in the pose. And what I noticed was just a profound sense, if I'm going to put words on it, maybe that's what love was or is, that pure awareness where nothing is fixed or changed, where it is what it is. And what I noticed is that once I was with that energy, what happened with the mind when it was active was, once the charge of the energy underneath the thoughts was seen and heard and felt, without changing or fixing it, it dropped away, and all those other thoughts dropped away. And so what I noticed is, as I would just simply allow whatever was in this temple to come up, the energy. And after a while, all those thought patterns that I had just dropped away completely. And I was here. And then what occurred to me was, perhaps I'm not meant to hold on to anything at all. Anybody, anything, any situation. And perhaps that's why we're managers of energy. We're just managing energy within this body, and if we don't manage it, we throw it on each other. And we expect somebody else to deal with it, and that's a whole other radio show, right? But as for what I learned on the mat, I learned that I can't run away from whatever this energy is in me, and it was profound. And it's profound to be with your own feelings and emotions and sensations without trying to change or fix them. Because now I could bring that to other people. And I could see when they're throwing a story on me.
Yes.
Right? And I could also be with them when they're in their own feelings.
Right.
Because I'm not scared of them, because I know what it's like to be with them. And to me, that's what like a lioness and a lion really does.
Absolutely, and I would imagine that it would give you a sense of presence too, to really understand when you're in relationship with other people, like, oh, she's talking to me and I'm feeling this. You know, is this mine? Is this hers? What? I don't know. I'm just going to sit with it, and I'm just not going to judge it. I'm just going to let it rise through the temple, like you said, and let it go.
It is what it is, right? And I believe that that's what people talk about when they talk about that immovable presence. So people can be going through all sorts of stuff in front of you, and you just sit in that presence, in that space, that quietude within you. And you're with it because you're with it for yourself.
Right.
And so there is no need to change or fix, because if in fact the hypothesis is that there is only love, it's either a call for love when you're with somebody or love. But no matter what, the origins have no cause. There's love doesn't cause something. Love is. So we don't have to do anything, which sounds ridiculous to the mind and people watching. But that's why it's a practice, and that's why we can only show people to the door. They have to go through it.
Now, does that relate to some of the forgiveness work that you did too? I mean, does one build upon the other for you?
That's good. You know, because when I first had forgiveness, it was forgiving my story that I was holding about the other person and then gaining wisdom from it. So it was like, I think Michael Beckwith brings this up, forgiveness. Thank you for giving me this.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel like now it's from a different place that I recognize that we're more energy. So for me, it's not so much forgiving. It's just I do have moments where I do forgive. But now, as you take more ownership of the energy in you, you realize that the universe doesn't judge you, that you've never been judged, that you've never been hurt or harmed or any of it. And you realize that this you that you're holding on to is an illusion. It's not real, right? So what are we actually forgiving, and what is forgiveness? And so, yeah, it's a deepening, and it keeps unfolding itself. Not to say that I don't have moments where I completely acknowledge myself and I go, forgive me.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. I think that's such a great point. Carolyn Casey actually even she says that forgiveness is forgiving the energy to change, like forgiving the possibility that someone can change, So but it's me too, it's like forgiving myself, forgiving myself the energy to change as well.
Yes.
So and it seems like that's really what happened. You had a significant change going through your process that is very evident in your writing. And so in terms of you write that this gave you a sense of freedom, and is that, what is that freedom for you? Like what does freedom mean?
Freedom is to own your stuff, right? We all have a choice. I think that's wonderful. We have the freedom to choose what we want to do, but are we choosing kind of following the happy? So now what the freedom that I have is the one in which I'm following more of what's happening inside. And I'm no longer following the mind. And so I could be in front of somebody. In fact, someone brought up something to me the other day, and it wasn't resonating within me. But I could hear them wanting to explain and convince and try to get me on board. And then I knew, just from that knowing place, this isn't. So that's the freedom. The freedom is to follow the heart. And she is quiet. And she's not movable. Like, she doesn't move unless somewhere in that quiet space, she's like a heart catcher, and she catches that insight, and she goes, now we move. Even when she's leading, right? Everybody else is trying to go, 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 go. And she's like, that's her constant mantra to the mind. Shh, 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 shh. That's why we breathe, because when you breathe and you listen deeply to your breath, it sounds like the ocean.
It does.
Right?
Yeah.
And so when I hear people call the ocean, that's what, I got to go to the ocean. No, you just actually be here. Just listen to your breath. So yeah, that the freedom for me is more listening to the heart, because the heart alters everything.
So in some ways too, I mean, the mind has all these constructs that it forms, like stories, and you read about this, but we and so often we can get stuck in those stories. And so in some ways, what you're talking about, returning to the heart, is also freedom from that from those constructs.
Definitely.
And those constructs are sometimes they're inherited. Sometimes they're part of our familial patterns and communities, and they're not even ones that really resonate with our spirits.
Right. I mean, look, when we're born present.
Yeah.
And then everybody around us starts to give us a story about who they think we are. And so we have no way of blocking that. So now we formulate the story of David Matthew Brown as he moves throughout his life. But David Matthew Brown isn't real. It's a construct that was put on to him by other people, right? And then when we enter a quote-unquote spiritual path, what are we letting go of? We're letting go of all those voices that you're talking about. The mom voice, the dad voice, the grandpa, the minister, the reverend, the nuns, whatever it all is, right?
Yeah.
Because we're none of it. But we think that we're the thinker of the story.
Mm-hmm.
So we're constantly defending it and wanting it to be right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I think in that too, and here's where my astrology hat comes on.
Good.
Is that so we ultimately myths and stories help us contextualize ourselves. They help us
Sure.
to understand ourselves in the world. And when I look at a birth chart, I see pure potential. I see like this is your human potential. Here is here is what is where some of your challenges might be, but here is what the positive things that overcome those challenges, and here is here's how you here's how your potential in the world, like
Right.
what you're here to create, very much represented by the chart. And at the same time, I think in order to get to that pure potential, we have to, like you're saying, go to that place of stillness inside and go to that place of intersection.
Right. And witness the story, like you just brought up, because the story is the myth, bringing us back to the heart. We just don't realize what it's telling us until we're aware of it. And we go, oh,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah. And once you name the story and once you tell the story, you can reconstruct it. You can retell it. Just like I spent some time this summer with the Maori in New Zealand. And
So you tattooed my back.
really?
The Maori, yeah. My back tattoos from the Maori in New Zealand.
No way.
Yeah, I was there last year.
Oh, wow.
Small world.
It is a small world.
And I've been thinking about going back there, so that's great.
You should definitely go back.
So
this
this
is
I love it there.
synchronicity.
I love it there. It's home.
Yeah. It's but what are the things that was so interesting? And if you've spent time with them, you know that everything's a story. Like they have their genealogy. They're so connected to their genealogy, and they remember the stories of all their ancestors and the people who came before them, and they remember and they learn and they pass on information through story.
They're amazing. And when I was there and they tattooed my back, the guy was talking to me, asking me about my story. Tell me about this divorce. Tell me about your life. And then as he was listening to it, he wrote this design that's on my back. And so we're in the room. It took 6.5 hours to put on my back. He just did the whole thing in one sitting. And he prayed over me. So he goes, I'm going to pray over you now, David. And so he prayed over me. And I wept because you could feel the ancestors of the Maori people coming in that room and they were with you. And I couldn't describe it any other way. It was just so heartfelt and moving. And I was like, wow, it just got real.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. So it's interesting because we're talking about, in some ways, we have these stories of who David Matthew Brown is supposed to be, from pastor and mother and, teacher. But then also we have the bigger story, which is that we are accepted by our ancestors, that we are loved, that we are held by not just our own familial, like our own line, our bloodline, but also by ancestors in spirit who come into our lives, who participate in our lives.
Right. And to have the reality that you've never been judged. Just sitting with that.
Oh, it's so powerful.
Yeah.
And I think, so many people, this is a time, just before the show we were talking about like all these big astrological things happening in the world and in the cosmos. And so this is a time when a lot of people are going through major changes, getting huge revelations, huge insights about, I need to leave my marriage, or I need a new job, or I want to quit my job and start my own thing, or I want to leave my religion.
Or I want to do it all at the
yeah,
same time.
Exactly. Well, and that's happening. I'm sure you've noticed this in your own work.
Right.
Having had survived that, I think that, but you went through a really significant transition and through your divorce, and what and I think one of the things that people fear the most when they're making those transition is, I'm going to be judged, I'm going to be abandoned, I'm not going to be loved. And one of the in your book, in the Book of Light, you have this one quote that actually just really struck me. And you said that the heart doesn't know fear. The heart never gets scared. I think is actually what you say, what you write. And that heart, really, like you're saying, it sort of drives that the motivation. It kind of pulls that toward that change. How did you kind of come to a place of peace and come to a place of courage when you were going through that transition?
It's a process. It's a process for everybody. Here's a good thing. I was working with the kids this summer. This will help.
Yeah.
Kids always help because it simplifies everything.
Yeah.
Right? So I would ask them if they were going through something, and like you guys that are watching could do this too. Point to yourself. Point to yourself. Right.
John's doing it too. Right. We can't see him on camera, but John.
and that's who you are.
Yeah.
But yet we got talked out of it when we were younger. We got talked out of our hearts and into our minds.
Mm-hmm.
We learned how to problem solve and solve everything. So we aren't used to, as of yet, as a collective group, as you know, working with energy and astrology, we are learning right now how to simplify and listen to our feelings and sensations. And so those that are moving through transition right now, it sounds ridiculous because you do care about what other people think. Just acknowledge it. You know, all the things that you just mentioned, they do care. Otherwise, you wouldn't bring it up. But when you start listening just to a little sensation, here's a good example. I had a sensation in my shoulder, right? So I just sat with the sensation. I didn't try to change or fix it. All of a sudden, as I'm sitting with that sensation at night before I went to bed, I just started wailing because what I heard come through was, I love you just the way you are.
Wow.
And right when I heard that, the sensation left and whatever I had on my shoulder went away. And I just wailed because for the first time, I heard that unconditioned presence come through and remind me who I am. That here I am in full love. And I have moments where I'm forgetting that. Or however that works, right? So for people going through transition, keep it simple. Go out in nature if you have to. Sit on some grass, like go on a hill, go for a hike. But while you're going there, just be aware of yourself, being aware of yourself, right? Listening to the feelings and sensations. And remember this is always helps. You're just playing here. We're just playing. Like it's okay. Just look at it like you're playing a game and you got caught up in the game and the rules and you forgot how to play. And so you got to come back and start over. And you go, okay, I'm going to start over right here. I'm going to be in my breath. Do some heart breathing. Breathe into your heart and out of your heart. Get out of your mind. That's a good way to do it. You breathe into your heart and out of your heart. Just allow the breath to go there. And while you're there in the heart, breathing, just bring awareness around your body. And it's going to sound ridiculous. You might have a pain in your knee, so keep your awareness in your knee. And that's going to bring out insight into your life. But be gentle and be kind. And if you need a guide, if you need a coach, really listen to who that coach or guide is. Just don't jump into somebody because they promise you fame or wealth or whatever. That's not where we're headed. We're all headed back to the heart. So be gentle. Just start with the sensations. Really, just start with the sensations and find time to meditate if you can. And if not, find time to dance a lot. I tell women that all the time that take meditation and they can't meditate. I go, just go dance. Go dance. Your body needs to move. Women's bodies need to move. And then insight will flow, right?
Definitely. So that playfulness is here's I'm gonna bring this I'm gonna bring in your chart for a second. Okay. I won't give too many details, so I won't break any kind of confidentiality that you might have. But one of the things. So you're a Gemini Sun, Gemini Mercury, Gemini
Hello,
Venus.
I'm a Gemini.
and so one of the things about Gemini, you have a lot of Gemini, a lot of Mercury in your chart, very, very prominent. And Mercury is the sign of playfulness. It's the sign that rules children, and so it's also the sign of mental processes, writing and speaking, and so communication of all kinds, which you're definitely engaged in. But I think that we could definitely learn from your Gemini playfulness, because I think that's something that in our culture of doing. When you're playing, when you're a kid and you're playing, you are just you're there, you're present, you're in your imagination, and
right.
and so many things are coming together. So many ideas are coming together when you play. So I think that's something that really is a gift of yours,
Right.
is that spirit, that sort of youthful, playful spirit.
Thank you.
Sure. Now, so what's next for you? Do you have another writing project? Do you have other workshops? Anything else that's coming up?
You know what's interesting is I just keep getting clients.
Great.
I have this thing called a lion session. So you just sit with me and we move from there, and it's really powerful and it's fun. So that I continue to speak. You know, I have someone that's interested in having a show where I can be on TV and do my show, and in relation to like Inside Out, you know. So, you know, just kind of go with it. I got soccer season starting with my daughter. I coach girls soccer and I love it.
Great.
So yeah.
And how old is your daughter?
She's gonna be 8.
Is she?
She's gonna be infinite. She's gonna be the infinite number.
I love that. And has your yoga journey, your 90 days of heat, has that inspired her and changed her at all?
Maybe. She brought up when I would go, she goes, "This room's hot. Why would you want to do this? This is hot." And I go, "Yeah, I don't know, but you know, it's part of my journey. This is what I'm doing." You know what? Here, I'll share this with you. So, because she does this, so I teach all the girls that I play soccer with this. So when they first start, they're in fear of the other team coming down the field, or they have a fear of kicking the ball, or a fear of just the person in general in front of them. So I tell them this, and it always happens the first 2 games. When you feel that fear, it's okay. Just roar.
I love it.
Roar like a lion, and then go right at it, whatever you're scared of. So all my girls learn that. And so by the middle of the season, you'll hear somebody roar every once in a while on the field and go right to it. But what they're learning is how not to be scared and to stay empowered in who they are and trust themselves. Because the fear is in them, right? So, yeah.
I love that.
I do too.
Love it.
That's fun.
Spoken like a Leo rising.
Right.
Well, thank you so much. Our time's up, but where can people find you?
Easiest place, Facebook. Just go to David Matthew Brown, number 3. If they want to do that yoga, they can go to Modi Yoga on La Brea.
Yes.
And they're doing a 21-day Shavasana challenge right now,
Excellent.
starting September 1st. So they can just call the studio and sign up, and it's free and all that good stuff. But yeah, Facebook's probably the easiest place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Thanks
all
for
right.
having me.
And Twitter too. He's on Twitter too. So
you can tweet me
Yeah.
at 90 Days of Heat.
Yeah, great. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's been our show for today. It went so fast. Thank you to my creative team. Thank you, John Williams.
Yay.
Sure.
And Valerie Madden and Michelle Polino and Allie Lang and Robin Kaiser, all of you who support the show each week and help me make this more fabulous. So join us. We'll be back next week. And I'm still working out my guest, but I should have an announcement on Monday for who that's going to be. So thank you so much. Enjoy the full moon this weekend. Make the most of it. And we'll see you next week.